Welcome to the region's only public safety radio talk show. It's time again for the Sheriff's Report, your weekly radio call from Sheriff Ozzie, now in its third year on the air.
Radio base to the Sheriff. Come in, Sheriff.
Well, good morning. This is Sheriff Ozzie with the Sheriff's Report. Today we're going to talk about the politics behind I-1639. For those of you who may not be familiar with I-1639, it was an initiative that was passed last year by the voters that changed some of the gun laws in the state of Washington. And if you've been paying attention to the news, there's been quite a bit of pushback against I-1639. One of the pushback was some sheriffs came out and said that they wouldn't enforce 1639. I was asked about that, and in my opinion, it's kind of an empty statement because I-1639 really doesn't require a sheriff to enforce anything. It's basically an administrative type of law. So we're going to cover some of the things that I-1639 did, and then we're going to talk about the politics behind that. For those of you that are listening on radio, you can go to Spokane Talks Online, either our Facebook or our website, and you can look at the podcast because there are some PowerPoint slides that I'll be showing. If you're interested in those slides, go ahead and check us out at the Facebook page on Spokane Talks Online or, again, the website. A lot of people ask me what 1639 was really all about, or what the big controversy is. The controversy about 1639 is not that it had background checks. One of the things that sold you, the public, on voting for 1639 was it was touted as school safety. This will make our school safer. Folks, it didn't make any school safer. It didn't make society safer whatsoever. The only thing that 1639 truly did was create a definition of a gun that doesn't exist. And I can say that fairly definitively. I was in the United States Army. My rifle was never called an assault weapon. I've been in law enforcement for going on 29 years now. Our rifles, we never termed them as assault weapons. So people ask me, well, how does that happen? Where did this term come from? It was created by politicians. Politicians intent on banning guns, and they created this term to scare you, the citizen. It's that simple. Politics is emotionally driven, especially in today's venue. There's not much cognitive thinking that goes on behind anything in politics anymore. It's really, truly just emotionally driven. And they realize that. And they realize that if they want to get something done, they're going to apply the emotional pressure points and change things. So the only thing that 1639 really accomplished was to create a definition of an assault rifle. And it's right here. This is coming straight from the Washington State Voters Guide 2018 on 1639. Right here, this area right here makes it very clear that this initiative defines a semi-automatic assault rifle to mean any rifle which utilizes a portion of the energy of firing a cartridge to extract the fired cartridge case and chamber the next round, and which requires a separate pull of the trigger to fire each cartridge. Now that is every single semi-automatic rifle in the state just was labeled and defined as this new thing, an assault rifle, every single semi-automatic. Now, what they used when they passed 1639 to convince you to vote for it, they'd hold up an AR-15. This scary, scary gun. But what they actually did was they actually made the 22 rifle that I've carried for 40 years, small game hunting, an assault rifle. Every one of our semi-automatics are now assault rifles. Now, why did they do that? It's pretty simple. All you have to do is look at our state attorney general, Bob Ferguson's legislative wish list. He wants to ban all semi-automatic rifles, and they're going to use the term semi-automatic firearms, these assault weapons. You see, folks, I can't even think in this logic because it's not an assault weapon; it's a semi-automatic firearm. But he's going to use this definition of a semi-automatic assault rifle to ban all semi-automatic weapons in the state of Washington. That's the whole push behind this. Again, if you don't believe me, easy enough to fact check. Go take a look at our state attorney general's wish list for his legislative agenda. It's all about ban gun. So the next thing that I-1639 did was require that anybody that purchases a semi-automatic rifle, or now a assault rifle, has to take a class. This class says it has to include basic firearms safety rules, firearms and children, to include secure gun storage. We'll get back to that here shortly. And talk about to our children about gun safety. Here's the irony of that. At one time, we actually did teach gun safety in our schools, but the progressive liberal took that training out of our schools. Now, I know the progressive liberals are going to go up in arms that I'm picking on them. Hey, look, you have your own issues. The extreme right has its issues. I'm talking about your agenda, and this is the progressive agenda. Make no doubt about that. And progressives, if you're denying it, you're not telling the truth, because this is your agenda. And the problem you have is you have a lot of Democrats, because not all Democrats are progressives, just like not all Republicans are all right. So you have a lot of Democrats that have been calling me, talking to me about this issue, furious about what you've done in this initiative. They don't like what happened here. They said, how did this happen? And I said, well, you guys didn't read the initiative. You voted on emotion. That's what happens when you don't take the time to find out what's in 30 pages of law. This particular initiative should never have been allowed on the ballot because it violated our own state's laws concerning initiatives. Thurston County judge even said so. Then how did it get on the ballot? Because our activist, progressive, state Supreme Court put it on the ballot. Activist judges. So you have all kinds of training that we now have to go through just to purchase a semi-automatic rifle, or as they term it, a semi-automatic assault rifle. And guess what? Law enforcement's not exempt from this. I've read no exemption for law enforcement in this. So it appears that the Washington State Patrol has been tasked with designing this training, and I guess they'll be rolling it out to the rest of us before June of this year. The other aspect that I-1639 was to make it so people that are 21, under the age of 21, cannot purchase a semi-automatic assault rifle. Here's the big confusion for a lot of people. I received a phone call. I've only received about 3 phone calls chastising the stance of sheriffs on 1639. This individual that called doesn't understand even 1639 as it is passed. He believes that an 18-year-old to 20-year-old can't possess a semi-automatic rifle or semi-automatic assault rifle. That's not true. 18 to 21-year-olds can still possess them, except they are very restricted as to how they can possess them. It says they can possess them in their residence, fixed place of business, on real property under his or her control, or for other specified purposes, which is also going to the range and things like that. So 1639 did not ban 18 to 20-year-olds from owning one of these rifles. It only banned them from being able to purchase them. So all those people that thought that, apparently like this individual that called me, that they can't own them, you're wrong. The initiative also makes it that there has to be a warning placed on the boxes that the weapons come in, and even in the stores that they are purchased in, that says, caution, the presence of a firearm in the home has been associated with increased risk of suicide, death during domestic violence incidences, and unintentional deaths to children and others. Well, folks, you can pretty much take a look around the house and put this warning on almost any implement in your home. And I'm not being facetious about that. That is just the way it is. Again, this is the emotion side of the politics. It's going to charge those who purchase one of these weapons $25 added on to the purchase to pay for implementation of all these new requirements. $25 isn't going to be enough. And guess what? Those of us that are tasked with doing background checks, they haven't given us any more money to do it. And here's the other side of it. Our state attorney general came out this week with a letter chastising sheriffs that has said that they aren't going to enforce 1639, and we've already covered that. There's really nothing that we enforce. And said that sheriffs that don't do background checks could be held liable. Well, guess what? We do background checks. It's sheriffs and chiefs. And nobody's ever said that we'd never do background checks. But here's the problem for our state attorney general. The state has created a system that the mental health side of those background checks is 3 years, folks. 3 years in arrears. So if anybody needs to be held liable, it would be our state attorney general, who has allowed that at the state level to take place. So before Mr. Ferguson starts pointing fingers, maybe he needs to clean his own house. And we have brought this to their attention multiple times. Please get this cleaned up, because I, as sheriff, and I'm going to speak for 38 of my fellow sheriffs, we don't want to have the wrong person get a hold of a weapon. We do not want that. We have asked the state to clean up their process. To this day, it's still behind. So, Mr. Ferguson, quit grandstanding, clean up your own house, and help us make sure that this background check system actually is performing what we want it to do. And that is to keep weapons out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. The initiative created a couple of new crimes for unsafe storage. Here's the problem, folks. They also say these crimes won't apply if the firearm was in secured storage, meaning a lockbox, gun safe, or other locked storage place that is designed to prevent unauthorized discharge or of the firearm. The other aspect of that is the initiative does not spell out what safe storage is. It doesn't. So how are you ever going to charge anybody with this type of crime when the initiative, and this is per our Attorney General's office, purposely didn't define what safe storage is. According to our state Attorney General's office, they left it up to basically the prosecutors to decide, what that is going to be. Well, here's another part of 1639 that fails on the constitutional end. A law has to be equally enforced. You can't have a law that isn't equally enforced. Our governor has even said that. He's put a moratorium on the death penalty because it's not equally enforced according to him. Well, how can you have a state law pertaining to going and charging people with a crime when you have not defined what safe storage is? So that means someplace on the west side of the state that may be more progressively liberal leaning may charge somebody for this. Somebody on the east side of the state that is more conservative leaning probably wouldn't. So where's the fairness and where's the equality for the citizens of this state, where one citizen could be charged with something, but the same citizen in the same situation may not be charged? Equal protection under law. I suggest that our state attorney general take a look at that for the constitutionality of this law, because our attorney general is simply playing gun politics, and that's never good for any of us, folks. This is too serious of an issue for these type of politics to be played. This is nothing but the agenda of the extreme left. Now, people will say, but Sheriff, you're the extreme right. Yeah, the extreme right has its agenda too. But I'm talking to the 80% of the citizens of this state that are going, this is ludicrous. We need to get control back of our government. You're right. Quit electing extremists. Quit electing activists. Elect people that really care about you. And you won't have to worry about the effects of initiatives like this. The initiative created a Class C felony for unsafe storage and a misdemeanor level range also. And this is the only part, really, that we have to take a look at as far as sheriffs and chiefs, is to do the background checks and make sure that people that shouldn't have guns don't have them. That didn't change anything for us. Nothing whatsoever. Period. We've always done that. That's always been our job. So 1639 didn't add any safety levels there. That is the nuts and bolts of 1639. Now, how did we get in this mess? Well, by statistics like this, and I'm not sure if it's showing up well on the screen, but these type of statistics are meant to scare you. And this was put out by a progressive group. I attended the meeting just to see what they were going to have to say. And they say these are 2016 statistics, and they say that there were 258 police officers killed in 2016 due to gun violence. Not true. Not true at all. There were only 171 law enforcement officers that were killed in the line of duty for the entire year of 2016 for all causes. If my memory serves me correctly, it was 64 that were killed in the line of duty related to weapons, specifically firearms. Then they talk about 428 mass shootings. No. And here's the crux of it, folks. There's a definition of mass shootings, but it's not a universal definition. And that's the beauty of this type of politics. You can make up your own definitions, use whatever statistics you want. They also talked about that there were 888 officer-involved suspect shootings during 2016. No, there wasn't. Now, remember I told you that the purpose of 1639 was to create a definition, and that definition will be used to ban all these type of weapons. Here's something for you to contemplate. You saw all the hoopla after the Parkland shooting, kids getting out of school, and folks, that was, a lot of people think, oh, the kids drove that. No, the kids didn't drive that. Those were activists that got a hold of kids and put on those particular marches. Now, Sheriff, that's a bold statement. Well, the problem is I know that's what happened. I've talked to people. I attended 3 forums based on this issue right after that. And I heard it straight from the kids. I had one of the kids that was a leader in that locally for those marches, and they went, my classmates didn't even know why we were getting out of class. And she was fairly down about that. Well, there's been a lot of false emotion built over that. And it's a tragic situation. You'll never hear me say that there isn't. But what happened was sincere emotion got hijacked by activism. And it has led people to believe that young people, would like to see assault weapons banned. Well, guess what? There was a survey done, this is out of The Guardian, that Americans age 18 to 34 most likely to oppose assault weapon bans. I said oppose, not support. 18 to 34-year-olds are the least likely of the demographic to support banning assault weapons. And the really funny part of this story was the people that they talked to trying to figure out, well, what's the dynamic behind this? They actually started blaming video games. Now, when I talked about the effects of video games and violence, people chastised me for that. But this article, the same people blamed video games, the politics of emotion. During this meeting that I attended, they talked about how, roughly 48% of Americans would like to see assault weapons banned. No, that's not an accurate number. The majority in the United States oppose banning assault rifles. Gallup has conducted this poll since 1996. And here's the data concerning that. Over here, right here, in 1996, 57% of the American population was in favor of banning assault weapons. In 1996, you come over here to October of 2018, 57% of the American population is not in favor of banning assault weapons. I'll repeat that. 57% in October of 2018 of the citizens of this country said, do not ban assault weapons. Now, if you take a look at that demographic over that roughly 22 years, what do you find? A 100% change in the thinking of the American people. In 96, they thought about, ban assault weapons. In 2018, October, so this is a very recent poll, we have 57% of the American population saying no. Now, where did the 48% come from? Right after Parkland. It was then. Since then, it's gone back up to 57%, and the average of this is, the support has been about 57%, 58%. The high was in 2016 at 61% supporting the ownership of assault weapons. You talk about studies about, the left will say, well, the assault ban was effective in calming down violence, because they're trying to convince you that we're in the grips of gun violence in America. No, we're not, folks. No, we're not. And I can say that they said that because that's what they said in response to a story involving 1639 and some of my comments. That comment was in reference to a self-described Marxist that has stated that he was going to kill sheriffs that oppose 1639. The people for 1639 said, well, see, even without a shot being fired, we're in the grips of gun violence. Well, that is not true. The studies have stated that the ban, the 1994 ban, did not do anything to decrease and was non-effective gun violence. Remember I talked about the definition of mass shootings. Mass shootings, as defined by the FBI, and these are active shooter types, because don't get confused about a triple homicide being a mass shooting. It's not. It's a triple homicide. According to the FBI, between both 16 and 17, 2 years total, 50 of these shootings were mass shootings or active shooter type shootings. Far cry from the 450 some odd that was put out by the left at the meeting I attend. 20 of those instances, those 50 that they talked about, fit the category of a mass killing, which meant that there were 3 or more people died in that situation. One of the things the left will always say is an armed citizen has never prevented a mass shooting. That is categorically false. DOJ, Department of Justice, has done the studies, and out of 10 of those 50 shootings that we just mentioned were stopped by citizens that were either armed or took action. One individual used a car to stop the assault. School shootings, the left would have you believe, are escalating, exponentially. Not true. They're actually going down. Again, the politics of emotion. According to USA Today, they point out that if you remember, early in 2018, within the first month or so, the media came out with, there's been 18 school shootings this year. No, there hadn't been. So be very careful about who you're getting your information from. Everytown for Gun Safety reported there had been 290 school shootings since the catastrophe in Newton, Connecticut, 5 years prior. No, there hadn't been. Nearly half of those were attempted suicides, accidental discharges of a gun, or shootings with not a single victim or injury. Be careful about who you're getting your information from. Some of the other statistics show, and I want to get this one out before we run out of time, because I'm running out of time very quickly. For the state of Washington, in 2017, a rifle, folks, was used one time in a homicide. So the left convinced you to pass 1639 because they said we have such great violence and we need to control these weapons, when only one rifle was used in a homicide. One. Be careful again about what you're being told. Take a look, do your research, because had you known that, I doubt you would have taken such an action. because it is becoming very clear that the state of Washington, the people of, are very concerned about the ramifications and future ramifications of 1639. I hope that this is the last time I have to talk about 1639, because we have other things that I'd like to talk about and get moving forward, but this issue has consumed a great portion of my time over the last several weeks, because people want to now talk about it. People want to, how do we stop it? There's one part I agreed with our Attorney General on, and it's this. If you don't like 1639, then change it. Start the effort to repeal 1639. If you have that much passion against 1639, change it. Because rather than say that we're not going to enforce laws, because that is a very slippery slope, if you don't like something, you challenge it, you change it. This initiative, 1639, is being challenged in the courts as being unconstitutional, because it is. The safe storage side of it is unconstitutional. Read District of Columbia versus Heller. Folks, this is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich with the Sheriff's Report. Have a great day.
The Sheriff's Report is a joint production of Spokane Talks Media and KTW 630 AM and 96.5 FM, which are solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, or watch this program again anytime at SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Have a safe day.